to the April 27th Shade Tree Commission meeting. We're going to go ahead and get started. Eileen Brett will be with us towards 6:45 time frame, but we do have a quorum. So first order of business is we'll do Pledge of Allegiance. The audience is welcome to stand and cite it with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So next order is meeting minutes from our last meeting, March 23rd. Excuse me. Does anyone have any commentary around the minutes?
Looks good to me.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? All right. All in favor? Aye. Item 4, the consent agenda. So we have 800 Lancaster, which is Villanova University. So Matt or James, you want to speak quickly to that project?
Yeah, I did a visit. James looked over the plans, and everything looks totally in order. They're taking one tree, which is a looks like about a 12-inch DBH tree. The stunning thing about my visit was how beautiful the campus is with trees. It's the lead plantsman at Villanova has done just a remarkable job. They don't have arboretum status, but they probably should try to get it. And it's just driving through the campus is sort of a treat. So that's something people should take advantage of. So they were all in order in terms of what we need to deal with.
Sounds good. And just driving by, I could...
Just trash dumpster enclosures.
I mean, why are they making it dirt? Is that all they're building?
They're just making it, they're making it a little larger.
Okay.
And just driving by, I do see all of the tree protection fencing up to spec, so that looks good. They're doing it by the book. Much appreciated. All right. Next address on the consent agenda is 5 Duncan Lane. James or Matt?
Sure. Sure. Once again, James and I reviewed the plans. I did a site visit. Shade tree protection that's designated on the plan looks appropriate, and the property is well maintained and well treed, and it looks like they're not taking any trees, so I think we're all set.
Yeah, there's no trees being removed.
Correct.
Great. And we are doing a new process, so if there's any public comment for the consent agenda items, have we received any emails that we're aware of or any other communication? Doesn't appear so. All right. I do understand there's someone from Chamonix here. Is that correct? Oh, Chalmont. Thank you. Are you with the Chalmont address? Okay. So we don't have anything on the agenda for you tonight, but if you'd like to come up and just state why you're here, and then we'll determine what the next steps are. Sure. Thank you.
Is this live?
It is. You got
All
it.
right, so I'm Mike Dunn from Brandywine Urban Forest. I'm a consulting arborist. I wrote this report. I don't know if anybody received it, but
No.
Mr. Elba is seeking to remove several trees on his property and intends to replant per Radnor Ordinance with a restocking schedule. So the complete landscape detail and drawing are not currently available right now, but they're in the works. So.
Okay. Yeah, so we will need you to submit all the appropriate paperwork with the township, and then at that point, you'll be put, excuse me, put on the agenda, and then you'll need to come back before us and review the plans, and we'll go from there. But
Okay. I was under the
appreciate the heads
impression
up.
that
What was the address?
506
Hold
Chalmont.
hold on one second. I think Trish is logging into the computer. Did you send the materials to Patricia Sherwin, do you remember?
Actually, it was the architect that was dealing with the. Did you submit those? Yeah.
Do you remember who you sent them Mike, I believe previously there was trees removed, correct?
Yes, there were some trees that were removed on site prior to me
Got
being
it.
involved with the project, so.
Got it.
I don't know if Mr. Elba knew or understood the process until I became involved, so.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Well, I think regardless, though, we don't have the formalized process submitted, so.
What you can do, Mike, why don't you send me the report? You're going to need to compensate for the trees that were removed previously.
Okay.
So if he has calculations, and I think, Ricky, you were out to the site, correct, at one point? Numerous trees were removed. Just do the calculations, unless they were dead, dying, or diseased. Provide any photographs if they have any. Do the calculations. You're going to have to show the new trees on the plan, which you stated there's a landscape plan coming.
Yes.
When that is completed, just send that in, and I will send you the correct address to send it to.
Yep.
And then you'll be back on the agenda,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Yeah. I wasn't totally familiar with the process.
No, absolutely. So,
This report is just stating existing conditions on site right now, so. Yep.
We'll need that too.
Okay.
But we'll also need the plan denoting where those trees are on the site that are coming down.
Yep.
Where
We
you're
have.
requesting them.
You got it.
So, Dark will have to need that. And we'll need the plan at that point.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.
Okay. Item 5, new grading permits, so nothing other than what we just chatted through. Item 6, tree removal without approval and clearing permits. Again, similar story there, nothing on the agenda. Item 7, violation notices, nothing on the agenda, which leads us into old business. So we're going to chat through some of our recent successes, plantings, and then dive into the ordinance update. So spring planting, congratulations to everyone. So successful parks and residential plantings, total of 96. I think there's 3 to go, but 96 in total, which is great because our milestone for this year is, or goal I should say, is 150. So if we plan to do a fall planting, which we'll talk about here in a minute, excuse me, we'll easily hit that number. But I would say our first large planting of bare roots, other than last fall, was a great success. Learned a lot, I think all of us did. And I think, excuse me, we could do the same thing for the fall. So I'd like, Frank, if you could give a few words on the parks planting, just for the record, and then Jenny for the resident planting, just for the record, that would be fantastic.
Well, we did complete 28 plantings this past Saturday. The feedback I've received from our people who are working with the DeVita volunteers has been extremely complimentary, and I just got a message a few seconds ago from the DeVita people that they thought we were pretty cool also. So it was kind of a love fest, if you will. Jenny and I have spent some time putting together a lessons learned, since this was our first volunteer planting of this magnitude, and somehow we'd like to get that into the minutes so that it's saved for posterity and the next time we do this, you know, which might be in the fall or next spring.
Sure. I mean, if you're up for it, I'd like to chat through those now, maybe as a group, if you'd like.
Well, Jenny and I both think someone else should do it next time.
I'll leave it up to you, Frank, but happy to chat through it offline, then we can get it into the minutes.
Okay, I can just give some really brief highlights.
Sure,
if you'd
let's do
like.
highlights.
Okay. We found with the residents that flowering trees were much more popular than large canopy type trees. And somehow that should work our way into what we order next time along. And I don't know whether we just, because we're a shade tree commission, just order large canopy trees, or whether we get a little bit more compromisey and do like maybe 25% flowering, 75%.
Yeah, I think what we spoke to last time was with the amount of appetite and registrants that we got, I think it's our duty to order 100% shade tree and just figure it out kind of thing. I understand the flowering are a great incentive, but I think to stay true to our mission, we order 100%. But, you know, we may have more residents back out last minute because of that. So we might have to have, you know, a good contingency plan to plant in the parks. But those are at least my thoughts. Anyone else have similar thoughts on the mix of flowering versus shade?
I agree completely with you. Yep.
We could do, in addition to that, think of a little corollary here, is that we could order for residents who want flowering trees at $95 a tree and just sell it to them. And they could plant them themselves and basically plant them wherever they want, because we had a little bit of confusion that residential trees had to go in the right of way.
Mm-hmm.
So this would eliminate that sort of
Right.
confusion too.
But aren't we obligated for a tree tender to assist with planting or be on site for planting?
No,
No.
we're not.
Okay.
No, we're not.
Okay.
So we could
Yeah.
get, satisfy that demand.
That's
that
an
way.
idea, yeah. And I do think, you know, not to step on the Conservancy's spring giveaway, they are totally different sized trees. So there might be someone that would want a larger tree to plant. So let's give that some thought, but I like the
Okay.
idea.
Everything else just went pretty well, and I think as of today, we've got one tree that was canceled at the last minute. We'll probably end up putting that in the willows.
Great,
So that'll be all 96, counting James's trees.
We should have all ours planted by Saturday. or
Okay.
Monday.
perfect. Thanks again, James.
And we are getting publicity. It's on the website, and
Yep.
now that you're teaching me how to do hashtags, we'll get it out even further than it is right
I have faith in you, Frank. Well, great. I think the other piece of feedback that we had at Clem Macron was looking for ways next time to involve more of the residents nearby the parks. You know, not making it a requirement, but maybe making it a, you know, maybe we go door to door, not hit every resident, but, you know, spread the word, post some flyers. Yes, Sarah?
That didn't come from us, it came from DeVita.
Right, exactly.
That's the significant piece. The DeVita people said it would be wonderful if the people who are benefiting from these trees came and joined us.
Right. And for the record, in case it didn't come through, the volunteers had mentioned it would be great for the residents that are benefiting this, that are nearby the park borders to, you know, possibly come out and make it a bigger event. So, agree. All right. Well, thank you, Frank. Ginny, floor is yours. Quick update.
I don't have that much to add to what Frank said. I think you sort of covered the highlights. That it was just a lot of logistics with the front yard versus the backyard, and somehow on our flyer, or somehow, I mean, I must have emailed them several times about the front yard, and they still didn't understand that. We had cancellations at the last minute as a result. So somehow that was my big takeaway, to maybe put it like front and center at the top of our flyer.
Right.
Front yard planting only, or something,
right.
to get that across. And, you know, thanks to Ricky being able to get that into his scope of work, allowing us to even do this project with the residents. I don't know if it was too onerous to Ricky. You know, maybe we want to consider getting trees that they could plant themselves. That way we don't have the front yard, backyard issues, you know, sort of like the way the Conservancy runs their program.
Sure.
I don't know, I just throw that there for food for thought.
Okay. Yeah.
Because, again, it was a lot of logistic nightmare, having
Yeah.
the cancellations
Sure.
and stuff.
You know what's odd? I wonder what was different this time versus other times, because it's always been just street trees. It's always been along the front line. So I
Right.
wonder why there was so much confusion this time versus other times. I don't know if there's a
Yeah.
learning there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know we've gotten some feedback previously, but it sounds like it was more than usual this
And
time.
maybe it was just the magnitude. We did so many more this time, maybe,
Or maybe the big conservancy planting was also a lot more,
yeah.
Yeah,
at 500 trees.
yeah. So maybe, I think you're right, Jenny. Big headline of right
Yeah.
away, street tree only kind of thing. Yes, Sarah. You want to come up?
I helped Jenny by going out to stake, and I would guess that more than half the people I saw were brand new to Radnor Township. One family had bought their house over the internet, so they had not a clue as to what was going on. So I think it's really longer and more emphasized education. And
Yeah.
we have a lot of people moving into Radnor.
That is a
And the
good
real
point.
estate market's been hot.
Yep.
And just about everybody I saw was brand new to the township.
Sure, yeah.
And that could be a big factor.
Yeah, I think that might have partly to do with it. Good point, Sarah, thank you. Okay, thank you, Jenny. And last but not least, Rick Foster. Any advice or lessons learned from your crew going out and planning?
No, it was a success. I think that the coupling with Frank, we had, I don't know how many meetings we had with Frank to make sure everything went smooth, but in my personal opinion, it was flawless. We met with Frank and executed plans. We talked about tools. We knew we would take care of everything the right away, or at least in front of the residences. And the only thing that we have left now to do is put on the watering bags and also mulch the trees in the parks. And that's what we'll be caring for. But everything went great. I think we had, out of the 50 trees that Public Works had to plant, we had like a few planted the day we picked them up, and then they banged out, I think, about 20 on Friday, and then they did like another 20 on Monday. So it went very, very well. I
That's
mean,
great.
the bare root trees is a huge success for us, because if we do ball and burlap, the time it takes us is a lot longer because we have to bring a machine out to dig the holes for us. So the ball and burlap trees are definitely great, but the bare root trees, and they're thriving, too. So I think it's a great program, and the amount of trees that we got this time and having those volunteers, I don't know if that's going to always be available to us, but those volunteers were really the key to the success of what we did this time around.
That's great. And as far as timing and your crew's availability, it sounds like it fell pretty perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be tough for us in the spring and the fall with Public Works and in particular parks. A lot's going on in the spring. I mean, we have fertilizer, grass is growing, still doing spring cleanups. It's a lot going on. And the same thing with the fall. We have our leaf season basically takes over the whole township. So we'll make it work. We always do, and it's great to, as a community event, and for us to be out there doing that. So it's really not going to be a time where those trees will be available that will be really free and just have a bunch of time. So, yeah, I think the planning was the key. We basically over-planned, if you will, but it showed in the end because we flew through the process.
Good. The amount of trees, 50. Would you prefer us to keep it no more than 50 in the future?
50 total?
Yeah, 50 total.
Can I speak honestly?
You may.
Yes, I would like to not go past 50.
Okay.
I talked with Frank, and the reason for that is if we're not able to get volunteers,
Right.
I couldn't imagine if we would have had to plant 80
Sure.
for the public
Yeah,
works staff.
I wouldn't say for like the park plantings, for instance. I think moving forward, it's volunteers or no trees kind of thing. Or we go out there and plant the 30 ourselves or something. So, yeah, I think we'll promise to you that we'll keep it at 50.
Yeah.
And the other
Could we
promise
bid it
too.
out?
Go ahead.
Could we bid it out, Seth?
We
You know,
could.
like-
I mean, that's another option to chat through. I think the trouble is finding a landscaper or nursery that would be willing to plant bare root trees for us. I don't know, James or John or Rick, do you have any?
I mean, you could also, when I mentioned the 50, you could also divide your numbers. You don't have to
Sure.
do, you could do 25 in the parks or 30 or 40 and just put 10 in parks. So, you can break up the numbers. You don't have to have, one suffer and the other one doesn't get any. So I feel like 50 is good. I don't know what we're able to do in the fall also, but I feel like 50 is good. And if we can, just alternate between the two, the right-of-way trees, street trees, and also the parks, I feel like there's enough to go around. Plus, we always have James with an extra, 16 that's been coming to our aid too. So.
But Ricky, I want to plant hundreds of trees per year, so we'll figure it out. But we'll keep your part to 50. But the other promise to you is that 50 bare root, exactly. The other promise to you is making sure that in our tree maintenance proposal that we're actively working on, that we'll make sure to include, this resource of Public Works as a part of that, so that we can, vouch for potentially getting more headcount for your department as this being a part of the plan and everything else, so.
Speaking of the volunteers, are we planning to send like a thank you to like DeVita or some of the residents that, do we get addresses or names that we can maybe have Molly or somebody send a quick blurb out to?
I've been sending thank yous to DeVita, as PHS has been sending thank yous to DeVita, and it's been going both ways. We don't have individual names of people that were wielding pickaxes and shovels.
Yeah, maybe,
let me think about how to do that.
yeah, maybe a letter or something more than an email would be nice. Not to say we have to do it for this time, but I like the idea, John, maybe in the future. Oh, speaking of tools, that's what was on my mind. It seemed like the tool situation was fairly flawless. I know we had a bunch of lending going around of tools, but any logistical problems with the tool situation?
No, Matt's tools actually dug the holes deeper. But
That was because of the pink handles.
yeah, the pink handles.
I appreciated that.
That was it. No, we had tools lent by Matt and James, and then the difference was made up by the township.
That's great. Thank you
And the
all
township
for doing
delivered
that.
all the tools to the sites as well as delivered the trees, so.
Yeah,
And then they picked them up at the end of the day.
yeah.
Well, most of them.
I know we chatted about this previously, but if we want to use part of our fund to maybe purchase, 30, 50 shovels just to store in the corner of the Public Works building, with caution tape around it so nobody touches it until the plantings. Because it's great that you guys lended tools, but I don't.
I did suffer one loss.
Okay, that's what
It was
might
one of
have
my
thought
first, too.
would have
but
happened, yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, okay,
Actually,
so,
it's not a problem for us. Like,
okay. But still, I think logistically too, it might, having one grouping of tools versus having to paint shovels pink might be easier. Yeah, expense it to the
I'm
shade
gonna
tree
come
fund.
look for Ricky's shovels now. I think it's a good idea, Seth, though.
Okay.
If we keep on doing
Yeah.
plantings,
Yeah,
probably be a good idea to buy 10 or 20.
yeah. So shovels, pickaxes, what else were we using? Oh, the stake hammer thing. But those were the townships, right? Yeah, okay. And we had enough of those, it seemed? Yeah, at least at the parks, yeah, okay. Okay, well, I think we can work offline, Ricky, you and I, and maybe Bill White, and, yes. James?
I just thought, since I live next to Ordinance Park, one of the most dramatic things that I've seen around tree planting in my 37 years in this township is we lost a copse in Ordinance Park. We lost a group of trees that were basically ash trees where people sat under them and watched the baseball game and picnicked and did things, and those trees went away. And so the negative of that was a lot of people don't know why those trees are going away. They just see them go away. But they came back. So the copse came back in like a weekend, and it's back. And it's like when all those trees leaf out and start blooming and doing their thing, it's like people are going to go, Radnor they made a big move here. So it's, for you guys who did the work, it's probably a little under the radar, but I think as people drive by Ordinance, they're just going to be like, man, Radnor is in this business now. So it was really wonderful to see that copse come back.
That's great.
Like my local
Perfect.
Fantastic. Any other commentary around the spring planting? Great. All right. Fall planting. So now that we're almost all the way through with the spring planting, let's talk fall planting. So PHS offers another bare root program in the fall. And in speaking with the PHS lead that came out to help us, she did mention that the success rate in the fall is, favorable. So I know we've been chatting about success of bare root versus B&B in the fall. And we were using the spring planting as kind of a pilot program. So I would say if I would make a proposal for the fall planting, we do a 100% bare root shade tree planting. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? I know we were teetering between B&B and bare root. So at this rate, I'd say let's do a bare root planting. Any thoughts?
Economically, bare root would be a way to go because the trees are $55 a tree
Right.
for the first 30 and then $95 afterwards. And
Right. So it is.
it seems to be pretty healthy stock.
Yeah,
that
and
they're-
it's
they're
10x
giving
compared
us.
to what we were paying previously. So,
Yeah.
not to say we would plant 10 times the amount of trees, but yeah, I agree.
I would just say, Seth, if we're going to do bare root, we need to get our act together and do it earlier than December planting.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Well,
Luckily, we're set on a tree clock, so we have to pick up fall trees. I don't know the exact date, but similar to the spring, we have to pick up at a certain time, correct?
Yeah, and that will be mid-November.
Mid-November, right.
Yeah.
But that's an ideal time frame to plant those trees, and that's why they make them available to pick up. So mid-November, and then we have a week to plant, essentially, per the recommendation. Mid-November. Ricky, what are you guys up to?
Leaves. Yeah, it's just about the amount. I think we got, Frank, 30, 40 last fall?
Yeah, we had 40 last fall.
Yeah, I mean, that was fine. I think that's good enough. You guys just let us know how you want to divvy it up. I know there's people on the waiting list if you do street trees, so, however you want to work it out, like my guys will be available. If we keep it 40's manageable, even if it was just for the, public works guys. So, I wouldn't want to go any higher than that.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's maybe work on, we'll keep your cap at 50 and no more, but we'll work on potentially finding if there's any, landscapers out there that plant bare roots, or maybe PHS has a good recommendation, or maybe we can scrounge up 1,000 volunteers. Because I know our goal is 150, so, if we did another 50, that would get us right there. But I know we have the budget with, some funds coming in from some of the fines and some other things, so we have plenty to work with. So, we'll push to see how many we can get in this year. And maybe we, now that we've given the parks and the residents a fair shot, maybe there's local businesses that we could target. Eileen did a great job with the WBA getting those trees in, but I know that there's probably a few more spots that we could nail down on. I know that on South Wayne, with the stormwater management project, I know that, I don't know exactly where that is right now, but that's one of the things that we were holding on before we plopped a bunch of trees down on South Wayne. But I'm sure if we did another round of soliciting, we could find some more spots for businesses. So maybe we go that route as well.
I should add that we also got $1,500 from PHS, and Leah has received the check, and the only money coming out of that is James's shovel and a couple of first aid kits.
Was that from DeVita or PHS?
PHS.
Okay. So we got 15 from
1,500, yeah.
from DeVita and?
No, we got
PHS.
1,500 from PHS.
Okay, I
And
gotcha.
that's it.
I gotcha, great. Yeah, thank you so much for PHS for doing that. And in the end, the additional, I guess, 50 that we purchased was right around, or just under $5,000. So very economical for the amount of trees, and some sweat equity as well. Okay, so as far as opening up a fall planting registration, I think it's early to do that now, but Ginny, how many people did we end up on our waiting list from the spring registration?
We have 15. Would you take one off today, Frank? or-
Took a couple off, so I
Okay,
think
so
we're
maybe we
down,
have a dozen?
we're down to about 12 or 13.
Okay.
Okay, so, and we opened up the spring registration, that was what, a month or 45 days before the planting? I forget, it's around there.
I think we opened it up in end of February.
Okay. So about 2 months.
And we were sold out within 2 days.
Yeah.
Right,
That was
exactly.
absolutely amazing.
But if we're going to offer only shade, I do think the
Sure.
the numbers will drop significantly.
Right. I also know that PHS, they have obviously a limited amount of species, so the sooner we get our order in with them, the better, because we have better pick. So I didn't look at the list specifically, but Frank, what would you guess? How many tall shade trees do they normally offer? I think I remember there was at least like 5 or 10 large shade trees, maybe more.
No, they're, of course, I can't find, they offer about 12 or 15 different, well, they offer between medium and tall.
Uh-huh.
You know, there's probably about 25 species to choose from.
Yep.
And probably about 10 are
Yep.
the large
Okay.
canopy type. We got everything we asked for, and we applied on the first day that the application process was open. So
And when was the first day that it was open?
I think it was, I could check, I think it's like May 4th.
Okay, so like a month, well,
Yeah.
2 months beforehand.
And then they placed their order and they let us know whether we got, and they got us everything we asked for.
Okay, great. So we'll have to set a calendar reminder to make sure we get our order in soon. Because I recall checking a couple weeks before the planting, and I saw there was a bunch sold out, which makes sense, but just to give us perspective on what we need to do there. Okay. So as far as next steps for the fall planting, we'll look to, maybe open registration. So if we're talking mid-November, maybe late August, early September, open it up after everyone's back from their summer vacations. Ginny? any
Yeah,
thoughts
like
there?
mid-September,
Yeah, okay.
after Labor Day.
Yep, sounds
Okay.
good. And in the meantime, we'll see if we can find possibly another group of volunteers. We'll think through that. And I'll work on seeing if we can find some possible landscapers to help us out if we want to plant a ton of trees. James, what's James Gibbons Landscaping up to?
I don't know yet.
Sounds good.
If I'm available, but I think stick with the bare root
Mhm.
and maybe possibly have.
Turn your mic on.
If we go for 50 to make the number, maybe try to do like 30 residents and 20 in the parks, and
Mhm.
if worse comes to worse, we'll plan a day.
Well, we
plan.
wouldn't make you do this for free, James, that's what I'm getting at.
No,
Yeah, we'll trade you a shovel for each tree.
no,
you
if we could
plant.
get a couple volunteers,
Yeah,
I'll bring a machine, we'll dig them, and then a couple people just cover up with dirt
okay.
and water. I mean, I think we can, yeah.
So as far as roles and responsibilities go for the fall planting, Ginny, do you mind running point on registration again?
Sure.
We'll throw you a registration party once it's done.
As long as I can have Frank for my partner.
Perfect. And Frank, do you mind running point on seeing if we can gather up another group of volunteers? Perfect, thank you. I'll run point on figuring out the the number that we can plant and if we can get any additional paid resources to help us. And all of us collectively will look to think about ideas for residents, parks, and businesses, and we'll work on a formalized plan over the next couple of months here. Sound good? All right. Moving on to ordinance update. So Monday was the BOC meeting. Rick and I presented 263-6, the emergency tree removal ordinance proposal. Went well. The BOC approved us to move forward to have John Rice, our solicitor, put together a formalized amendment. So all looks well there. We had a couple pieces of good commentary from the BOC, just making sure that we kind of thought through everything, which, collectively, I think we were all on the same page, which is great. I haven't spoken with you, Rick, yet, but do you want to take the action to work with John to move that forward, or do you need my assistance?
Yeah, no, it could be a team effort. I don't
Okay.
mind. I mean, I can reach out to John or you reach, as long as we're all kind of connected while everything's moving forward, I think is fine. Whatever
Sure.
you want me to do, I can back you
Okay.
up, whatever you like.
Why don't I'll send a note to him, copy you, obviously, and Bill White, and we'll get it moving and then go from there. Sounds good. Perfect. Thanks for Rick on the partnership there. I know that'll be a huge help to the resident or the Public Works Department, the township, but also I think it just generally makes sense to cover public safety issues, so all good there. Any other comments on the ordinance 263-6 before we move on to the next ordinance update? Great. All right. So next priority of potential ordinance update is the personnel of commission. So this is 263-3, which includes appointment terms and vacancies. So with Claire needing to leave us, Tammy from Parks and Rec, along with Claire, proposed the idea at least to rethink how each other's boards have seats. So obviously on our board we have one rep from planning, Matt, and then also one from Parks and Rec. We don't have someone tonight, but that's how the ordinance is written. Couple considerations, and we can open it up for discussion. So Tammy had made 3 points, and I'll run through those right now. So I guess 2 points. On the expiration of the term of any shade tree commissioner, a successor shall be appointed by the board to a term of 5 years. Obviously, there's an existing vacancy, so until that's filled, that won't be satisfied. And apologies, let me get back to the notes here. So I think generally speaking, the primary recommendation has been to potentially flip-flop the seat. So having a shade tree commission member on Parks and Rec. A couple considerations that I thought through. Leah brought up a great point that potentially in our home rule charter that might not work, or it would need to go through an elevated approval process. We would need to check with John Rice to see if that's the case. My other thought is our board approves grading permits, building permits, and we are the ones that kind of approve projects to proceed, whereas Parks and Rec, to my knowledge, doesn't necessarily, besides their own projects, doesn't really get involved with any residential, commercial, building permits, if you will. So having someone from Parks and Rec on our board, they're having a vote against anything that happens at residents with trees, at parks with trees, So yes, the residents and trees may not 100% apply to someone on Parks and Rec, but I do think, all of the park plans that we've approved and reviewed over the years, having them have a say as to whether or not it gets approved, I think is very important. The other comment that was made was having the expertise of someone on the Shade Tree Commission on the Parks and Rec Commission, which I appreciate, but I do feel like our time, I don't want to say it would be wasted, but I think there would be a lot of downtime for someone that may be sitting in that seat, only because it's not just trees that we're talking about on the Parks and Rec board, it's everything else, right? So this commission is in place strictly just for trees, so we're always talking trees. So in any event, that's my ramble of some thoughts. Does anyone have any thoughts on the topic?
Well, the roles that Parks and Rec and Planning bring are liaison roles, basically. So from my perspective, because planning sees all the, planning and Shade Tree see the same plans, it's really makes sense for me to be able to go back to the planning commissioners and say what's going on Shade Tree, because they may not know, or also for me to absorb, during the planning commission meeting, absorb questions from the public about the Shade Tree process so that we don't waste time at the planning commission going over Shade Tree business. So that's been advantageous. I can't speak for Parks and Rec on that, on that value. But the other thing is Shade Tree Commission is ordinance driven, one of the only commissions in the township that has that power. So I think we have to weigh who's on the commission based on how much power they add to that already powerful commission. That's it.
No, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
So Seth, what I hear you saying is you're questioning, we could assign a liaison there, but it may not be the best use of our time because they talk about so much more than Parks and Rec, or so much more than trees.
Right, and
Sorry.
the proposal would be to remove the Parks and Rec member or liaison from our board, and Shade Tree go to their board. But yeah, I think, we're always happy to, provide feedback, offline through email or in person over the phone to Parks and Rec, by all means. But I think, this commission is responsible for the final plans of something. So we're busy enough planning our own stuff, so I would love to help plan Parks and Rec's projects, but I think we become too diluted at that point, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the real value add or win could be if we just had a heads up of what Parks and Recs was doing regarding the parks and a large number of trees like Fenimore Woods, and therefore we could give input on the very front end, which would probably save them a lot of time. But that, I agree, that I think could be handled by email and just notification versus having someone from their committee sit on our committee or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. And I know Steve Norsini had given us a lot of good heads up on park projects. I know, Ricky, you'll do the same, wink. And, they have their agendas posted publicly, of course. So, I think between all of us, ad hoc, we kind of are familiar enough with some of the parks projects that go on. So I think, in my opinion, an unofficial liaise is the most appropriate versus, having a seat on the board. But my plan for next steps is have a conversation with Tammy just to get kind of her perspective as well. But I wanted us first to talk through collectively how we feel about the scenario before we move forward with anything. Anyone else? Frank?
I agree with Eileen that it's something, it's just having the knowledge back and forth. Maybe we can have added to our agenda, if there's anything going on in Parks and Rec or zoning or planning or whatever, and just maybe have one of us just check that before our meetings and report out on it, just to say, hey, there's nothing going on, or they're going to clear cut Fenimore Woods or whatever's going to be happening.
Yeah, I mean, we could make an agenda item to review, quick review.
Quick review.
5 minutes of each other's board's agendas as a group.
Yeah, and I'm thinking on an exception basis,
Sure.
Don't go through the whole agenda, of course.
Right, exactly. Just pick out what catches our eye. Okay, I like that thought.
I
Ricky?
collectively agree with everybody's comments as well. I don't see the need for us to have a board seat,
Yeah,
especially since we're ordinance-driven. It would make sense for Parks to have a liaison situation here.
right, okay. Ricky or Lisa, you have any thoughts on this proposal?
I'm sorry. I do like the fact that I think the two boards, engage. I think it does help that with different projects. And I am grateful that, one or the other is willing to, go to either or. So, because that, definitely adds time. So and I'm sorry, I don't know if it's this thing, like sometimes I have a hard time hearing. So you're talking about it just being kind of a, not a formal seat, but just someone who would liaise, like they could come here or you guys could go there, just
Well-
back and forth, or?
I think the proposal remains to retain someone on the Shade Tree Commission from Parks and Rec, so as is, but to not have to formally have someone sit on Parks and Rec from Shade Tree, which was kind of the proposed idea, to flip, essentially. So I think in our eyes, we need and want someone from Parks and Rec to have a vote in final approved plans, of park plans, when they come around the board. I understand that, when residential plans come through us, it has nothing to do with parks, and that's an extra burden for that person. So the only other thought would be, to your comment just now, would be to eliminate the Parks and Rec seat on our commission, and have some sort of unofficial liaise situation. But obviously, there's logistics involved with even proposing that or getting it approved.
Yeah, I guess my, only concern sometimes, unofficial, then, like, how do people know when to go? What
Right.
if they can't go? Like, if it's not something sometimes that you're committed to or you have on your calendar to always attend, it could be different. And then it could be difficult. And then there could be a night when you really do need that person there.
Yeah.
And I do think that a lot of times what is happening at, here is, it is good to have a Parks and Recs person weighing in, or at least being able to provide insight as to maybe what could be being discussed concurrently on their board. So, I like it the way it is right now. So I think it's important for the groups to have that, and but if you guys are the people who are really in it, are seeing there could be value to doing it a different way, and I'm not totally opposed, but I think that, some of the things that have come up, that have come out of Parks and Rec, it is valuable, for someone from that board to be sitting here when you guys are seeing things, because a lot of times it's already gone through Parks and Rec to a certain point, and I think that that's a valuable perspective to have for all of you as you're making your decisions.
What I wonder, though, is is the Shade Tree Commission better off having dedicated shade tree commissioners? Liaison roles sometimes are, someone is doing something else, they're on another commission. So are they going to have the time to take up the slack, if there's slack to be taken up on the Shade Tree Commission? In other words, you're just making an argument here that is a pure Shade Tree Commission of Shade Tree Commission members better than a Shade Tree Commission with liaisons? You know, I don't know the answer to that. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, I do think it does, you know, this is a volunteer role, right? So it stretches someone thin, you know, to be on 2 or 3 commissions, if they want to be involved more so than just, you know, coming to, you know, vote on certain things on the agenda. So I think, you know, that's a significant consideration we have to take into account. But, you know, that Parks and Rec liaison position is in the ordinance for a reason. So I'd imagine at some point in the past, you know, there was a really good reason to have that liaison appointed to Shade Tree. Whether or not that reason still pertains today, I don't know. But maybe Mrs. Golis might have some memories of how that came about. I don't know. Maybe it might worth it asking. All right. Rick, any thoughts?
Honestly, I'm kind of torn between both opinions that you guys are kicking around. It is going to be taxing to have double duty, but if the ordinance calls for it, unless the ordinance is changed, you know, we kind of have to acquiesce with what the ordinance says. I guess the one problem I would see is even if you did do what you mentioned, where you have somebody kind of check the agenda, it's kind of hard to act after the fact. Like if you imagine, you know, we had, you know, our spring and fall planting, you know, we already had it organized and set up. And if someone from, let's say, Parks and Rec wasn't at the meeting, but they wanted to change something after we already vetted the process, you know, how much harder would it be to then have to go back and undo things and slow down the momentum that we already have? So I'm sure it will be the same way with, you know, some of the Parks and Rec plans that they might have with regards to parks. If that person came in after the fact, I mean, it could kind of slow things down. So it would be great to have somebody there that can speak to it as these issues come up. So, but I understand that is double duty. So it's a tough ask, like you said, to have someone kind of juggle both. But I think there's advantages to having someone there right then and there when answers need to be had.
Got to work on that cloning machine, I guess. Thank you, Rick and Lisa. Okay, any other comments before we talk next steps on that guy? Okay. As mentioned, I'll speak with Tammy. We'll have a conversation. We'll talk through all the great thinking we had tonight, and we'll determine what we can do as next steps there, and I'll keep everyone apprised. In the meantime, obviously we don't have a Parks and Rec person tonight, so we'll continue as Rick mentioned. You know, we need to follow the ordinance, so we'll continue to find a Parks and Rec person as we can. Great. All right, next is the tree maintenance proposal. So I've worked on a skeleton deck for that. As mentioned, that'll be a kind of a long burn
Hey,
goal
Seth?
for 22. Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry, did you want to go through the ordinance proposal, the update?
Yeah, let me get through these two first, then we
Okay.
can swing back around. And we can talk about how we want to tackle that. So tree maintenance proposal, skeleton deck, long-term goal for this year, but I'll guess towards the summer timeframe, we'll have something formal to review, and then we can go from there. The shade tree ordinance communication plan, so that's one of mine. So we have that master flyer. Now that we're over the hump of the spring planting, I'll work with Molly to see if we can get that posted out. And I think it would be something great to post, you know, on an annual basis versus just once kind of thing.
Seth, can you ask Molly if she has the capabilities of getting into the real estate offices? Because if not, I mean, Claire and I did do a list of who the
Sure.
managers were of all the local real estate offices, so, you know, I could probably get it around there, but
Yeah, I'll ask.
I don't know if she has that capability. I mean, it's not really PR, so she might not want to take that on.
Right.
But
right.
it's really
No,
probably just a matter of, I mean, and I could give her the list of names of the
Yeah.
real estate offices
Yeah.
and just making sure they get a flyer, or, like I say, I can make sure.
Okay, yeah, I will ask. And before we have her send it out, I will send out, I know we all looked at it probably a year ago now, but I'll send out the flyer once more, just so we can take a fresh look at it. I think there's probably a couple things we'll need to update just based off of how the plantings are netting out and making the language make sense overall. But in any event, I'll get back on that. Yes.
So,
This might be a little bit of scope creep, but I'm one of those neighbors. I got new people moving in the neighborhood. I actually give them a package,
Yep.
one of which is this shade tree thing, and also other things about how to register for bulletins from the township website, garbage,
Yep.
recycling, things like that. Do we want to make this more of a new resident package?
I know we had talked about that previously, and I think there was a hiccup in that being included with the packet, but I don't recall what that hiccup was. Does anyone remember?
I think it was just the logistics of figuring out who was handing the welcome packets out. I would have no idea who was doing that.
But it's
Does
not,
it come from the township?
there's not a township sanctioned welcome packet, right?
No, I made up my own.
Right, you made up your own.
It was
Okay.
great, but they still put their recycling out in the wrong place. So I'm not saying it's good.
Frank, you are a saint. That was the holdup. There is none.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know that there would ever be one without a significant effort. Lisa, it looks like she's anxious to
So-
say something.
So I was just going to ask, like, yeah, so I don't think there is like a township welcome packet. It would be nice if we had that though, right? But I know that, there is like processes the realtors have to go to when there's transfers that happen here in the township. There's, so is it also another point where, as, I don't know if it's Trish or somebody else, in like the engineering or in finance or somewhere where there's some sort of interaction with the realtors on these different on these transactions that maybe also the township can reinforce. Like maybe it's just if they're sending out a bunch of email, like an email with a bunch of stuff, that would also be included with it.
Lisa, that's what Claire and I were thinking, because I know the realtors do give out a welcome packet to, like, the new residents, at least they used to. I'm pretty sure they still do. And that was our thought, to get them, the managers, a flyer, so that they could include it in their welcome packet to their new buyers.
Yeah, I don't know, like I said, I don't know what happens here. I don't know enough about, I've worked on one issue, but I don't know enough about what the township also pushes back out to the realtors. So if the realtors have it, but then the township's also pushing about, maybe it's, kind of like a reinforcement
Yeah.
as they're sending out stuff. That might be something, I don't know, Trish or Molly, you think?
The settlement companies are
Not
probably-
even a welcome email, like if there's regular transaction that's happening.
But all they get from Trish is a UNO.
The UNO, so they couldn't send it with the UNO?
It's a bold move, but I like it.
I don't know, I mean, maybe it's worth an ask, or maybe,
Yeah.
maybe Trish will kill me, I don't know. So, maybe it's worth an ask there, so there's like another, and it's just an email, she's emailing a UNO, then she just also emails the flyer at the same time. I don't know. But then the only other thing I was going to say is whatever you guys put out as a communication, please make sure that the commissioners get it too, because I will, I can make it a standing thing in my
Yep.
ward newsletter, that I send out. I do try to send out to people to say, hey, there is a shade tree ordinance. I do it on occasion. I don't do it every time, but if there was a thing
Yep.
that was easy enough, and I didn't have to think too much about it, that would be awesome.
Will do. I know this is a long time coming. We're right on the edge of having something that we can send out. So thank you for the patience. But yet, good reminder on the packet from real estate transactions. So in addition to realtors, the settlement companies, I know there's a lead paint disclosure and, stuff required by the state and federal law to include in real estate transactions. So not to say that we could go that formalized of a route, but if there are any items required by the township, maybe that's the avenue we go. So we'll see what we can find out. All right. Eileen, I will give you 30 minutes to chat through ordinance updates.
Okay.
And my proposal is, just like we've been doing with some of these other ones, maybe we take the time to prioritize the list. And I know there might be a couple of loose ends we still have to talk through, and we can go from there.
Yeah, so in prep for this meeting, I sent out an email about a week and a half ago that did just that. Because I love Seth's idea of let's break the ordinance down into sizable chunks that we can actually get approval on. So for that, I basically chose 6 items plus one other item that is literally just housekeeping. So I'll just run through these 6, and I'll pause in case you want to have discussion on any of them. So first one is Section 2, membership. I think this one is an easy one. It basically states that, hey, 7 members should be appointed. 5 of those members are appointed by the BOC for a term of 5 years. I'm pretty sure I myself am probably over 5 years, maybe Matt too, since he was here before me. So the amendment would be the other 5 appointed by the BOC for a term of 5 years, which can be extended on an individual member basis with the Shade Tree Committee BOC liaison approval, which in this case would be Lisa.
I was on the township website the other day, and I saw all of our term expiration dates.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see if I can find it, but continue.
Well, but just conceptually, it could be any one of us.
Right,
it could
right.
be, but do we want term limits in for 5 years? I thought a good way to do it is we could keep the term limit at 5 years, but give the caveat that just so long the BOC liaison approves it, that person could stay for year 6, 7, whatever is appropriate. Right now, it says that we would have to roll those folks off.
Right.
I think that makes a lot of good common sense, because if somebody wants to continue to serve, why wouldn't we let them
Excuse
want to
me.
continue to serve?
There's somewhere written in the township ordinances, each board has 5-year terms, and each member gets 2 terms if they want it. So the maximum you can serve in one consecutive stench is 10 years.
Okay.
But then I think you can get off and be on again 5 more years later.
Okay, then maybe we just have to amend ours to align with.
I will find that
Perfect.
where it's written, but I know you get 10 years.
And I would say if that's the case across the board, we just align with that.
Yeah, I agree.
That's easy. Okay, great. Thanks so much, Lee. Second one, definitions. So this was a big one. This is heritage tree. We aligned on that we wanted to take this from 30 inches and make it 25 inches, diameter at breast height.
Trying to think back to all the comments we had previously.
So that's to increase it to 35?
That's what we aligned on previously. Decrease it to 25
Decrease to
inches
25,
versus
yeah.
currently it's 30 inches. So
Right.
therefore, if you think about it, anytime you take down a tree 25 inches or larger, it would trigger you need to plant 6 trees for that tree. And it would trigger that you have to come before the Shade Tree Committee.
Yeah. I do think, if you think back to when Radnor Township was formed in 1900, the town, William Penn, 16, a lot of trees that were planted during the kind of formation of Radnor and, the population really increasing exponentially during that time frame, a lot of those trees are becoming end of life. If you just drive around, you can see, there's a lot of mature trees out there. So I feel as if lowering from 30 to 25 is advantageous to us, because at that point, we'll catch a lot more trees and we'll get a lot more trees planted out of the deal. And thinking back, I know that we looked other townships, what they classify as heritage trees. I know, John, you did some digging too, where there's no, like, in Webster's dictionary where it says 30 inches, but ranging from 25 to 30 is kind of what we saw. So I don't think we're outside of the realms of, you know, going into crazy territory or requiring something that, you know, is out of bounds. So I think I'm on board with the 25. I know that will be an additional burden to the township a bit, but I think at the cost of saving trees, I like it.
Anyone object? Okay,
I
next.
would object to it.
Oh, you do? Oh, go ahead.
What are your
Yeah.
thoughts, James?
I think 30 is a good number. There's, I've seen many trees that are 25 inches, under 30, that could be borderline healthy or dangerous, hazardous. I think we're going to create more work. And I think if there's a tree that's 28 inches and somebody wants to take it down and replant a new one or do something else with that space, that they should be allowed to.
You can still do that even if it's 30 inches, even if it's 36 inches.
Not without requirements, you can't.
Correct. You
Yeah.
would,
I don't think there should be requirements
okay.
for a tree under 29 inches or below. I believe 30 is a good number. I think it was 32. I think it was 32 or 35 before. I think that's a high number. I think 30 was set to a good number. There's even trees 28 inches that sometimes it's time to go. Plant new ones. I don't think they should have to fill out a report or be required to do anything.
I don't have the expertise James has, but I did ask the Schreiner Company and the Ward Company about this number, and they both thought 30 was the right number. They thought anything under 30 is you're just watering down your definition of what a heritage tree is, and that was their words. I don't know what to say as a member in terms of, I don't have an expertise on this. It's just, I feel like there's a little bit about picking numbers here for a sort of political, ambitious goal instead of maybe, I don't think we've done any research on why the 30 existed. I think we're
That
just,
could be- I mean, I don't think there's anything political about it, not that I'm aware of.
no, just in terms of saving the canopy.
Yeah,
Just
I think it was that simple. And I think it was a recommendation also by the Radnor Conservancy. Could we look at bringing the number down in order to save more trees? I think that was the idea.
Yeah, and I will say, I know that some numbers are fudged here and there with DBH measurements. So that would help with some real 30-inch DBH trees, where, you know, anytime we review plans and see a bunch of 29 inchers, we know that something's probably up. I know that, you know, we go out and verify, but I think it would assist with that, at least.
Yeah, and anecdotally, I could check the numbers on this, but anecdotally, when we did the survey of 5,000 trees, I feel like the number of between 25 and 30-inch DBH trees is going to be gigantic. It's going to be an enormous number. So I don't know if that adds value to an argument one way or the other. I'm just saying, if it would help to know that number of the 5,000 trees, I can get it for you.
Okay, so it sounds like for right now, we're voting to leave it at 30 inches unless
Maybe we do
we do some,
a bit more, I don't know, canvassing, if you will, pun intended, of Any other organizations or, residents might be a little biased, so probably shouldn't ask them.
I agree. I think it was a good idea what Matt did. He asked Schreiner and Ward, who have tons of certified arborists on their crews. Maybe I could contact the ISA, ask them what their opinion would be.
Yeah.
Maybe they could share some information with us as well, with some real stats of what's best to protect the canopy, whether saying that, well, it doesn't matter if we're not doing it to save because they're going to take them down anyway, we're just doing it to build, correct? We're not saving the canopy.
We're
by this.
hoping to. I
Well-
think
Well,
that's
people are
part of
taking
it.
them down no matter what, it's whether they have to rebuild. I guess you can look at it two ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We can't, at the end of the day, stop anyone from removing a tree. I mean, they'll get fined, right? But
No, they'll just come to us, they'll say, we're removing this tree, and then they have to plant 6 trees.
Right. If they don't want to plant 6, we get the money to plant 6.
Right.
Mr. Chair, would it be
Yes.
okay if these two ladies came up and just spoke to you for 2 seconds? They're kind of in a rush, they got to get back home, they're packing, but they have a concern and they would like to bring it to your
Yes,
attention.
please do. Go ahead and introduce yourself and why you're here. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie McAllister. I sent an email to you. You responded. I was directed here from Gretchen at the Radnor Conservancy. I live on Bloomingdale, and I've been there for 8 years. I'm moving tomorrow. My landlord sold the property, so they're going to be developing it, I believe, because it's an old house. And so I'm here because I'm concerned for 2 trees that are heritage trees. One's a Norway spruce, and one's a oak, and they have to be at least 100 years old. That's how old the house is. A surveyor was out and tagged the one tree's root, I believe to where the house can be expanded to. So I just wanted to do my part. These trees provide a lot for the community, and they're priceless, in my opinion. And so yeah, that's it, I guess.
Well, Jamie, very much appreciate you raising the concern. Got your email earlier today. And as mentioned, most likely they're marking out, for the addition in the planning process, but they can't touch any of those trees until they'll go through the formal building permitting process, which includes coming before us since they are heritage trees. So we'll definitely keep an eye on it. I don't know if Rick has any other comments he'd like to add to this. I don't know that we got a chance to look into if they've submitted anything formally to the township yet for that address. But, we'll certainly keep you in the loop, but very much so appreciate the concern.
So Matt and James, just when you see this, you'll pick it up and make sure we all go out and take a look at this.
Yeah, I mean, you're suggesting we take a look at these trees?
Once it comes through to us, because obviously right now, there's no application in.
Yeah.
But-
I don't
yeah,
know
but-
that these would land on the consent agenda per se. We'll make sure they come through.
Are you staying within Radnor?
Yeah, I'm moving to Windermere.
Great, so just follow the agenda when it's posted, and it'd be great to have you here as opposition for that.
Okay, so follow the agenda. Okay.
Yep.
I do have a question. So
Sure.
when a permit is submitted to be cleared for a heritage tree, what is the reason or cause that would be needed for it to get approved?
So generally speaking, it's either hazardous or healthy. If it's hazardous, we would likely approve the removal of it. If it's healthy, it would have to be an extreme circumstance, for the construction of the project. Obviously, there's many factors into why we might approve it or deny it or make them pay in fee in lieu of. So, as as John mentioned, when this comes on our agenda, definitely feel free to swing by, and we always welcome public comment.
But are you referring to the bottom line, though? In what, are you saying what can happen to these trees?
Yeah, like what would be the reason or cause, even if it was an extreme circumstance? Like, are there rules and regulations for removing trees, or is it just a price that people need to pay?
I mean, if they're gonna condemn the tree for either an addition or new construction, or they're gonna demolish the existing house, their architect's gonna say it's within the footprint of the building and needs to be condemned. That's what's gonna happen. You know,
And if
if,
it's a heritage tree, then they have to replant.
correct.
Or pay a fee in lieu of.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. So our tree formula specifies if you're removing a 30-inch healthy tree, you have to plant 6 trees. And if you don't do that, there's fee in lieu of, so they pay us a fine, essentially, and then we're able to use that money to replant somewhere else if they don't have the room or means to do it themselves.
Okay.
And the difference,
The circumference?
They're both over 30. Yeah.
Yeah, the oak is, like we were saying outside, probably 3 people standing to hug. The
yeah.
the Norway is 2, maybe 3. But the Norway is taller than the oak. The oak is wider at the base, and the Norway is taller.
What's the number of the house?
204 Bloomingdale Ave.
Thank you.
But there's been no plans or anything that, nobody said that they're taking it down, right?
No.
No.
So, well, thank you so much, Jamie.
Yeah, the sale of the house happens on the 30th, so in 3 days from now.
Got
So
it.
then, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
of
it.
course. We'll keep an eye on it. You do the same. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you
Good
very
luck with
much.
your
I
move.
appreciate everyone's time.
Enjoy. Good luck with the move. Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you for staying so long.
Thank you.
That was nice of them. Okay, so what I'm hearing right now is it sounds like we're staying with the 30 inches until we have data that indicates that we would want to go smaller.
Yeah. The other thing that we don't have to put too much time into this, but figure out, last year, if we made this change, how many, we can look at the plans that did come through us, how many of those trees fell between 25 and 30, just to get an idea of numbers that we would be increasing, whether it's 100, 50, 20, I don't know.
Okay.
And that wouldn't obviously count the trees that people cut down that are, fewer than 6 that we wouldn't see. And then coupling with this would be obviously communication, which, we can manage that, but just making sure that that's an important part of that if we ended up dropping the number.
Is there any way to differentiate between like a homeowner and a developer?
Yes, that is the next change. So the next
Yeah.
change, good segue, that we talked about is that for a developer or Radnor Township, there would be more stringent requirements. Those requirements would be no more than 10% of the heritage trees shall be removed in any given project, and the hazardous trees would be counted in the total tree number count.
I like it.
I like it too. What do we say now? We don't have that at all in there?
The hazardous trees, we don't have explicitly in there whether they're counted in or out, and so
Okay.
typically our practice has been that we do not count them.
Right.
But we're saying for the township and developers, the hazardous trees would be in the total count, and we'd put a limit on the number of heritage trees that you could remove in any given project.
So it's really a 2-part update, which is include hazardous plus the 10% heritage.
And it says unless otherwise approved.
Right.
So if there was some logical reason, we could still approve it, but it gives the guidance that
Right.
you shouldn't exceed 10%.
Right. If the entire property were ash trees, we'll probably give them a break.
Yes,
If we didn't already exclude
Yes.
ash trees.
yes.
I guess when we say hazardous trees in this regard, do we mean ashes as well in the trees that we have on the,
We should probably, I think, beef up our definition of hazardous.
Right.
Because I don't think we say trees that are, I'm not sure how you would say that,
Our exclusion list.
have their own pandemic going on. James can help me out with some wording there, but you get the idea.
Right. Okay.
Put that down to, okay, hazardous stuff.
And the 10% number, just thinking scenarios, let's say someone has 10 heritage, so that would be 1.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking back through to, there's only been a couple developer plans that had 10 heritage trees. Yeah, right. And I think, right, maybe we increase it from 10%?
Mhm.
Just thinking what a good number would be. I think 50%'s too high. Maybe a quarter of the heritage trees, so 25%. And I guess,
Yeah.
what are the repercussions if they say no anyways and they cut them down? I guess it's a fee in lieu of.
Then there would be a fine, yeah.
Yeah, so we would have to define the fine unless another
That's
fine.
later in the ordinance.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know, I'm still in favor of leaving it at 10%. I mean, heritage trees are, they're just so valuable.
Right.
I wouldn't want to give a lot of leeway to them knocking these trees down.
Well, maybe I'm thinking about it the wrong way then. So my thought was,
Oh, maybe, am I thinking of it the wrong way?
are we requiring them to keep the 10%? Or
I
Yeah.
thought we
they
were,
can't cut down any more than 10%?
You can't cut down more than 10% of the heritage trees.
Okay, so that's a very high conservative number.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that, like, the examples would be looking at Fenimore Woods.
Sure.
Or looking at the development that's going in, where the parking lot is, right near Valley Forge Military Academy.
Yeah. Okay, I was thinking it the wrong way. So in that example of, let's say a property has 10 heritage trees, they can only cut down 1.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they have to pay us a fee in lieu of.
Or we approve it, or
interesting.
we approve that 20% is okay.
The Valley Forge parking lot,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
know, that's a 20-acre, I think it's a 20-acre site. 3 acres is under canopy.
Yeah.
You know,
They did-
which you could say is full of heritage trees.
They actually did Jonathan Alderson was the architect on that, and he actually did a really nice job, because I walked the job site the night before it came here for approval, and most of the heritage trees were in the corners, and they left most of them there. I thought he did a nice job.
But
I don't know the number, though, I can't quantify it for you.
But let's just say 3 acres are heritage trees. You know, so on a 20-acre plot, they would only be able to, they would have to, only able to take down 10% of those heritage trees. So is it 10% of the 3 acres of heritage trees? Which I think it would be.
Yeah.
So they'd have to leave the other 90% of those 3 acres under canopy.
Which, at the end of the day, I feel like if they're eager to put in homes, they'll likely say, hey, we're going to remove them anyways, and we'll pay you, though. But I think it's good protection for township projects.
Yeah. Right, like the other one would be an example, I don't know if it's the best example, it was the basketball court at Ordinance, where the way they placed it, they wanted to cut down a heritage tree, where if you just placed the basketball court differently, then you wouldn't have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
So it was, and the idea more so was to give the township and developers guidance up front, like, hey, this is what we're gonna look at are the heritage trees. So
Right.
see if you can figure out a plan where you can save them. Like Fenimore Woods, it would have been so good if they had thought, that's what we're gonna look at. So therefore, maybe, keep the playground where it is, like figure out ways not to move it to populous areas with heritage trees.
And the fee in lieu of that we're going to get to, did we propose increasing that for heritage trees? I forget.
We did not. We
Okay.
basically said $500 per tree for developer, $250 per tree for resident, because typically it's paid for by how many trees do you have to plant, not what
Mhm.
you're taking down.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah, so it is more for
inherently-
heritage since it's 6 trees.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Mhm.
So I guess the fee in lieu of would stay the same with or without this proposal. It would just, to your point, be more so guidance.
Mhm.
Um,
And we could say if we wanted to, I mean, we could say 20% if we think 10% is too stringent. It'd be the first time we're imposing something like this.
Yeah, I think 10%'s pretty aggressive. But I guess the other question is, what teeth would we have from this?
We could reject it.
That is true.
And then they do have the right
All
to
right.
approve, I mean, appeal. They do have the right to appeal the plan.
Yeah. And it would, I mean, we could reject a plan previously. I guess this would just more so formalize our thinking as to,
But we really couldn't reject it. If it met the ordinance, there wouldn't be, because we can't be subjective and say, we like your plan aesthetically, we don't like this plan
True.
aesthetically. So normally, we would not. We would just go by, you comply or you don't comply with the ordinance.
right. Okay.
And it does communicate expectations to the developer.
Sure.
Which I think is pretty valuable.
And back to the mature tree conversation, which, we're at the point where we have a lot of mature trees in the township, so we need to hang on to them. Okay. I would propose increasing it to 20%.
That works for me. Ginny?
I'm-
You like 10?
I
We could say 15.
I mean, that's why I'm here. I love the heritage of trees. You don't get them every generation. So,
I do think if we introduce this as something,
Radnor supports our trees.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But as a new introduction, I feel like saying you can only remove 1 out of 10
Mhm.
might be a little,
Tough.
yeah. So, I mean, I'd say we, propose it to the board and
Mhm.
see what their thoughts are.
Can we go with 10 and have 20 as our backstop?
We have a better shot if we go 20.
Yeah.
You think
For
so?
people complying? Yeah, I do think that's true, what Matt is saying, because
Psychology.
it does say unless otherwise approved, and once we make an exception, then others will ask for exceptions too. 20% will have less exceptions.
Okay.
I do think that is a logical argument, yeah.
This is just for new development,
For developers or township projects.
and it doesn't include hazardous trees that are heritage size. That would stay the same,
We said hazardous trees are included
are included.
for township and project developers.
That gives them a lot of leeway right there. Hazardous trees are included, that gives them a lot of leeway right there.
It's
Because a
included
lot
in
of the
the count.
hazardous trees, are going to be 30-inch, I bet.
Right, meaning so if you have 10 trees
You have 10,
and
half of them
5
are
are hazardous, you
hazardous.
can still only take down 2.
Then what if they're on,
So maybe the hazardous trees need not to be included.
if it's a hazardous tree that is a heritage tree that's close to a park or a public area that we just presented that
All right,
they
James.
need to take.
Okay,
And
no
I'm just
more
thinking
than
through this. I
20%
mean,
of the
I
healthy
think we keep
heritage
hazardous
trees.
trees out of this. I
Yeah, I think
agree,
you would
if
take
it's a
the
good
hazardous
heritage
trees out of
tree,
it.
I would go with
I think so
10%.
too.
Right.
If it's in an
Put it-
undeveloped area. I like the 10%. Somebody's gonna come in, develop an area, they're gonna make good money on it. If they're gonna take down a heritage tree that's in the middle of a forested area for the last, that's never been developed, then, I mean, I don't think that's very strict. It's an undeveloped area with trees. Maybe they won't plan on building there.
I'm thinking of that
Unless
property.
they're doing it for underprivileged people that need housing, then I think we should let them pass.
You realize this is going to still have to go to the BOC for approval. I don't think it's worth debating. Because I think they're gonna like shut it down or say yes.
Maybe we go with 15. It's a compromise between 10
I'm not
and
doing the math
20.
on
14.5.
Half a tree.
14.5.
Frank says 14.5.
I vote for 20%. Can everybody live with 20% given
20%.
the discussion we've had?
Without, without hazardous trees in the count?
Yes.
Okay. I would
And we
vote for
should,
that.
All right.
we should say we round up, right? Because it might not be divisible, just a detail. Can't cut half the tree down.
Okay, okay.
Only vertical, not horizontally.
Okay, I'll figure that out. Okay. Next one is diversity, biodiversity. So for projects requiring replacement trees over 20, no one tree type should be more than 25%. We're trying to avoid a monoculture. I know John has said before that for biodiversity, you're under, I think, 10% you typically recommend. I thought that was pretty ambitious.
We're utilizing like 8% right now.
That's pretty ambitious. 12 different tree types. So for developers, townships, even residents, if they're doing more than 20 replacement trees, we're talking about recommending 25% biodiversity. So you need at least 4 different types. I think so.
It's when you get into large projects where, such as the one near, like Caprini, when they were planting over 100 trees. It was
Yeah.
critical at that point.
Yeah. Well, we can have a second criteria if we wanted a benchmark like over 100 trees, then.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that
Okay.
idea. So,
10% over 100 trees?
yeah, so 20 to 99 is 25%, and over 100 is 10%.
Okay.
Yeah, I really
Okay.
think this is an important one, for sure.
Okay. Okay. Then the next one is emergency tree removal. Ricky, I hope I got this right for you. So this is the one you want to listen to. Okay. It currently reads, if the township notes a hazardous tree on a private resident's property, the resident must remove the tree within 5 days.
This is the one that we just took care of
Good, then
on
I'll
Monday, so you can
delete
cross
that.
it off the list.
Good, because I was never sure if I got that wording right anyhow.
No worries.
Okay, cool. The next one is, then we can stop after this one if you want. Land development and subdivision. It says, in the event replanting is impractical, as determined by the Shade Tree Committee, the applicant has the option of making a payment in lieu of planting. Instead, we just kind of firmed up the language here, and we said, we defined what that payment is. Residents, $250 per tree, developer, $500 per tree.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we've kind of off the books have been doing, right?
Yep.
It's just, we need to get it in the ordinance.
Exactly.
Agree on
Okay.
that.
We put something such as under the discretion of the commission, just for the mere fact that, people are just going to say, hey, you know what, it's easier just to give them the money. And we really, down deeply, want them to plant the trees. It's those lots that cannot support the amount of trees. But in hindsight, anybody that has a large project that can actually plant the trees, but being lazy and they say, hey, we'll give you the 500 per tree, we should review that and review the designated planting area to decide.
Meaning, in some cases not give them the option, and in some cases make them plant trees?
Correct.
Okay.
So that really,
Oh, okay.
that fee in lieu of
Okay.
was designed for projects that can't support. So if they're clearing, just say, 5 heritage trees, okay, so then they have 30 trees to plant. But in reality, they could only support 15 trees. Those other 15 trees go to the big tree fund.
Right. Yeah, so maybe we add to that language for lots that can't support, but maybe that's too. Just put under discretion. Under discretion, yeah. Okay, I like that.
Okay.
And we still feel like 250 and 500 are okay. Do we know how long that's been in place?
I think it needs to be increased.
For inflation?
Can't buy a tree for $250.
That's a good point. It should be the cost of the tree.
Yeah, if that's what we're doing it for.
I was thinking 500 per residential, 850 for development.
Trying to think through some of the fee in lieu ofs that we've had recently.
Yeah.
There's not many.
Yeah,
Yeah, Sproul Road was the last one.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Again, it's a
one-
deterrent. We want the folks to plant on their property, on their said property.
Right.
You know, in some cases where they can't, then, you know,
And Sproul Road, I think, equated to what, 14,000 or so?
yeah. it was-
So that would double that. Which would be a big deterrence for
Yeah.
cutting those trees down. Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, $500 for a resident sounds like a lot. If they had to do 6 trees, like if they took down a heritage, that would be $3,000. Where right now, 6 trees would be $1,500.
But just remember, they can't even buy those trees for 500.
Right.
No, I know. It would go in the funding would go to us, and we would spend it on trees. Maybe bare root trees.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm leaning towards
Okay.
increasing it only for the sheer fact of that gives us teeth more so
Okay.
than,
Okay. What do you want to increase it to?
I think
The
the,
500 and the 850, or?
I think 500, 850,
How about 375 for homeowners?
yeah, rather than
That's
doing a
no,
big jump.
you can buy a tree for 250, 225, or 275, a deciduous tree.
So
But with,
What's that? Yeah.
but not installed.
Oh, you can't plant one for 500 installed either.
we did, our
They were like 525.
550 or so, yeah. I like that,
Yeah, I like that. Keep
Looks
the
good.
double from resident
and I
to
like the math being easy.
business. Yeah.
How about 425?
Oh, my gosh.
426.
Okay. The next one is just merely cleanup. There's something about heritage tree removal, and it contradicts something earlier. So I think that's like it says reference that there is an application filing fee for a heritage tree removal, but we don't have one. So I would remove that. I think that's just cleanup.
Oh, I didn't realize that existed.
And then it says that you must replace DBH per DBH, but that contradicts the tree replacement formula. So I would remove that. Okay. Okay, then there's just 2 left. It is planting. This one is encourages residents to plant and maintain street trees. Reference Appendix A for recommended trees. Instead, we would say township, this is township, not residents. Township project replacement trees must be native trees with a minimum biodiversity of 20%. And we could strike maybe the minimum biodiversity because we have that covered above.
Yeah, agree.
So let's strike that. But it's saying it has to be native trees for township projects.
Boy, John, I don't know about that. Native?
Do you lose a lot of certain trees?
Really? Like, what is native? I mean, seriously, like, so many trees are disqualified by that word. I don't like it at all.
Are there, hey, Matt, can you give us some examples of the trees that would be disqualified? Okay, some better examples. What about
Well,
like a
also
crepe
linden,
myrtle?
like a European linden, which is a fantastic tree, wouldn't qualify. I mean, there's a ton of trees that we're wiping off.
What Matt's saying is there are a lot of good non-native trees, especially for the streetscape, that are more resilient, salt resistant, and all that stuff. What I would recommend, why don't we say 80% native, 20%, which will give them the opportunity to
What,
intermix.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Another option could be, do we say that it has to be per Appendix A, which Appendix A we always keep current with the trees that survive here.
See, that's, and James could probably confirm this, you know, the species palette cultivars are changing very rapidly now for some reason. I think we should say, we should reference a link. And I'll research a good link that gets updated so that they can reference that link at any given time
I like that
For
idea.
recommended trees?
for recommended
Okay,
trees.
I like that, okay.
Because as things come up, such as ash, there's, even though ash is old news now, a lot of those lists, they eradicate it and they'll put, do not plant ash for this reason. Do not plant Norway maple because if it's, it's an invasive tendencies and all that good stuff. So we'll find a good link to reference that they can follow. That way we don't have to update the list, let somebody else do it for us.
Right,
That's-
yeah, I love
I
that
like
idea,
that.
actually.
Okay, last one. Maintenance. It currently says public utilities planning to do any maintenance must apply for an annual permit. The proposed wording is public utilities planning to do any maintenance must apply for an annual permit and review plans with the Shade Tree Committee prior to removing any trees.
Do we know of,
Like, so PICO would have to come and let us know what they're planning to remove.
didn't we talk about, there's some law or whether it's state or federal where they don't necessarily have to listen?
So that's correct. So they're managed they're governed by the PUC. They don't have to do anything, I believe, because of our Board of Commissioners, Mr. Norsini, and previously Mr. Zankowski. There was a relationship developed where they would give us notice and let us, but, obviously their employees change, so I'm not sure we're going to still have that commitment, so.
Yeah, we could say, and are encouraged to review plans
Yep.
with the STC prior to removing any trees.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
So then if there is an upset, we can bring them in.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay,
That's it.
great.
Well done, folks.
Thank you, Eileen.
Yep, Lee, I'll send these to you.
And then as far as next steps for some of these, we might want to pick off maybe like 2 or 3 at a time and move those through the BOC for approval. And just like with the most recent ordinance update that we presented, we first kind of ran it by Bill White and John Rice, just as a, does this make sense? And then, once they review it, then put it in front of the BOC. And then, once the BOC says move forward, then at that point, John Rice can officially make an amendment.
Yeah, Seth, I would try to do them all together, because
Okay.
it's not really that big of changes, and I just think it could be painful if we do 2 at a time.
Sure, yeah. Well, I'll say
So-
this, if one ends up being a sticking point for some
Right.
reason,
Oh,
maybe
we
we
could let go of it.
split it off.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's all, yep.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Seth, if I could chime in?
Yeah.
I know the one thing, and we had talked about this earlier, because Steve was, I guess, worried about anything that pertained to engineering, any changes we had. So I know he would want to have a look at whatever changes might have
Okay.
came across with his department.
Sure.
We would
So-
never touch engineering. They are perfect as
That's
they
Steve
are.
guy, I don't know. Yeah, we'll share with John Rice, Bill White, and Steve Norsini.
Yeah.
Can I just, when you guys present to the BOCs, are you going to do it similarly to what you just did with the one change on Monday?
Did it work?
I'm sorry.
I would, yeah, I mean, I would propose that unless you had some feedback.
I thought that was really helpful. I think just to give us an ordinance, even if it's like redlined with changes, is, I think it's always good to have somebody present. And
Sure.
I think to have that perspective, if you don't mind, or maybe there's a couple
yeah.
of you that might come. And, I think it is helpful for the BOC to know, you guys did do a lot of deliberation. I'm glad to step up and help, and Ricky is always there too. But, I think it's good to hear from the board, the commission that has made these changes, and it helps us put it in perspective and understand.
100%. Yeah, I think we would look to
Spoon-feeding is sometimes
present
good.
this, Eileen, right? Yep. Perfect,
We can
thanks,
do
Lisa. All right,
Great.
let's get wrapped up here. Annual goals, we all know what they are. Hazardous trees.
We all know what they are.
Yep, Exactly. Anything noteworthy on the hazardous tree front? Nothing. Good. Item 12, trees removed by Radnor Township. Anything noteworthy on those? Nope. Public participation? Nothing.
Oh,
All right.
can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
And maybe this is more for Ricky. Is there going to be, will there be a list of hazardous trees? Like, is that something the board will have to approve? You know, that to get taken down, to go out to bid, or?
Yes, we are in the process of setting up the bid meetings now. So once the meeting is done and we get the bids, then it'll come back before you guys. You'll get to see the list of all the trees that are on there and the price that, if you want to say, yeah, go with the person that lowest bid.
I'm just asking for the residents that have, their trees that have been brought up as
Yes.
concerns and all that, so.
Yeah. We're hoping, we have meetings in the month of May, and we're hoping we'll be able to bring it to you guys in the month of May. Did I say something wrong? Yeah, May 23rd. Bring it to the commission, the Board of Commissioners then, and it's awarded, and we're hoping they'll be able to start in June if everything goes smooth.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone, for the extended meeting. We are adjourned.
Very productive.
You kiss.
Thanks again.